Picture this. It's a random Tuesday morning. You've just poured your first cup of coffee, and you're the plant manager. Suddenly, your phone rings. It's the receptionist, and they sound panicked. An FDA auditor has just walked into the lobby. I can tell you from over 20 years of experience in API manufacturing and GMP operations, your heart rate instantly spikes. Because here is the harsh reality. It literally doesn't matter how beautiful and pristine your clean rooms look. It doesn't matter if you have $10 million worth of cutting-edge equipment on the floor, or if your final product looks absolutely flawless. Today, in this explainer, we are going to look at the one single thing that can bring your entire multi-million-dollar operation to a grinding halt. We're talking about data integrity. Listen, if your plant cannot definitively prove that its data is real, complete, and perfectly traceable, that auditor isn't going to see a state-of-the-art facility. They're going to see a massive systemic failure. So let's step right onto the factory floor and see exactly how an inspection like this unfolds.
So, the auditor walks in, and you know what? They don't just stand there staring at the shiny stainless steel machines. Instead, they immediately start digging into the paperwork and the digital systems. At first glance, everything might seem perfectly organized, but then the rapid-fire questions start hitting you. Who exactly recorded this data? Hey, why is this numerical sequence missing from the log? Where is the original raw file for this specific run? In the pharmaceutical industry, there is one absolute, non-negotiable golden rule that governs every single thing we do. If it is not documented, it did not happen. Period. But there's an even harsher reality hiding right behind that rule. If the data you do have cannot be trusted, your entire quality system just completely collapses like a house of cards. In an instant, your plant goes from, "Don't worry, everything is under control," to, "We actually can't prove a single thing."
Okay, let's dive into what this actually means. What exactly is that auditor hunting for? Simply put, they are looking for data integrity. This means your data has to be complete, consistent, accurate, and reliable from the exact millisecond it's created all the way to the day it's officially destroyed. It is literally the only way to prove to the world that your standard operating procedures aren't just some beautiful facade. Think about it. The auditor knows perfectly well that patients sitting at home cannot physically inspect every single tablet or vial they take. They are relying entirely on the fact that your factory's data proves the medicine is safe. Section 1. ALCOA in the laboratory. Let's look at the ultimate practical framework regulators use to either validate or completely destroy your lab data. Over my decades in pharmaceutical plant management, I have personally seen the ALCOA framework save entire companies, and I've seen ignoring it cost millions. Let's break it down using some everyday examples. The A in ALCOA stands for attributable. This simply means you absolutely must know exactly who did what and exactly when they did it. The correct way to do this? Every single analyst in the lab has their own unique individual system login. The wrong way? Using a generic shared lab password or staying logged in while a colleague jumps onto your machine because, it'll only take a minute. Look, if an auditor sees a shared account being used to run a batch test, that data is instantly invalid. Think of it like letting 5 different strangers run wild with your personal credit card. There is absolutely zero accountability to one specific human being. Next up is L for legible. Your data has to be readable and perfectly understandable long after it was actually written. It's exactly like trying to bake a cake using a 100-year-old family recipe where the ink is smudged and the measurements have been crossed out 5 times. You're gonna ruin the cake. Imagine an auditor reviewing a physical printed batch record. The right way is clear, traceable data. If a human error happens, which it does, you draw a single, clean line through the text, add your initials, the date, and a brief explanation. The totally wrong way? Unreadable, messy scribbles, overwriting numbers to make a 3 look like an 8, or worst of all, using whiteout. When an auditor sees a number heavily overwritten so they can't see the original value underneath, they don't just see sloppy handwriting. They see a potential cover-up. And trust me, that makes them highly suspicious. Moving on, the C stands for contemporaneous. This is a fancy word that just means data must be recorded at the exact moment the activity happens. Imagine driving across the country on a road trip, not looking at a map, and then trying to write down every single turn you made 3 days after you arrived. Your memory just isn't that good, right? Well, in GMP, memory isn't good enough either. The right habit is logging the weight or the pH result right there at the machine, exactly as the batch is running. The critical failure here is a terrible habit I like to call the 5 p.m. signing party. This is when a supervisor or an analyst just keeps the numbers in their head or scribbles them on a scrap of paper, and then sits down at the end of their shift to bulk sign a massive stock of records all at once. You absolutely cannot reconstruct reality hours or days later. If it's not contemporaneous, it's a massive red flag. O is for original. You have to preserve the original data, or a certified true copy. Let's say you bought a massive, ridiculously expensive TV. You want to return it, but instead of handing the cashier the actual store receipt, you just hand them a yellow sticky note where you scribble the price down. That sticky note is not original evidence. They'd laugh you out of the store. Down in the lab, original means the raw, native chromatogram generated by the HPLC system, completely secured on the official server with all of its metadata completely intact. The dangerous habit? When an analyst exports the data and saves an editable Excel file locally on their computer desktop because the official network system is just running too slow today. The exact second you move data into an uncontrolled, editable file without traceability, it completely ceases to be original. Regulators will always ask to see the raw, native file. Finally, the last A is accurate. The data must reflect the absolute, undeniable truth of what actually happened. It's exactly like stepping onto a bathroom scale in the morning, absolutely hating the number you see, stepping off, and trying again until you lean just right to get a lighter weight. You can't just do that. Here is the ultimate test of laboratory integrity. The right way is honestly documenting a failed injection or test error and opening up a proper formal investigation. The catastrophic violation, quietly deleting an out-of-specification result, or running a bunch of trial injections until you finally get a passing result and only saving the good one. In a GMP environment, you cannot just keep the nice results. The failed tests, the human errors, the weird-looking chromatograms, all of that is part of the accurate story of that batch. Listen, there is a profound truth we all have to understand here. Data is the memory of the factory. Like I mentioned earlier, patients and regulators cannot physically be inside the plant every single day. They cannot stand over your shoulder and inspect every batch. Therefore, the data is quite literally the only memory that exists of how that medicine was made. If you manipulate this memory, or even if it's just incomplete or poorly protected, you completely break the trust of the regulator and, more importantly, the public. Section 2. Dangerous habits and the CAPA domino effect. Let's look at how small issues explode into massive problems. You see, massive compliance failures almost never start with malicious intent. Nobody wakes up wanting to ruin a batch. They start with small, seemingly harmless habits that snowball. When data integrity starts slipping, it triggers what we call the CAPA domino effect. CAPA, or Corrective and Preventative Actions, is the absolute backbone of continuous improvement in a pharma plant. But here's how the dominoes fall. Step 1. An analyst takes a small shortcut to save time, maybe closing a deviation too quickly just so they can release a batch on schedule. Step 2. Quality assurance writes a superficial CAPA. It's a polished, beautifully written investigation that looks amazing on paper, but it doesn't actually find the true root cause. Step 3. Because the actual root cause was never fixed, the exact same failure returns a month later. Step 4. The FDA auditor sees the same recurring failure and immediately begins to question if your entire quality system is actually under control. So, what does this all mean for the business? We have to understand the devastating impact of these failures. We aren't just talking about a slap on the wrist from an inspector. Poor data oversight and weak CAPAs lead directly to FDA warning letters. And let me tell you, a warning letter is an absolute nightmare. It triggers import alerts, immediately halting your ability to ship products. you face massive regulatory delays. You lose huge customer contracts. You might have to execute incredibly expensive product recalls. Your company's reputation is absolutely shredded, and you will end up spending millions, sometimes tens of millions of dollars in external consultant and remediation costs just to get your basic systems back to baseline.
Section 3. Building a true quality culture.
So, how do we actually prevent all of this? We have to build a true quality culture. And from my own experience managing industrial production floors, let me be clear. A strong data integrity culture is never, ever built on fear. If your operators are terrified of getting fired for making an honest mistake, they are going to hide those mistakes. True culture is built on creating an environment and providing the actual systems where doing the right thing is simply the easiest and most normal thing to do. To support ALCOA on the floor, management must step up. You must enforce individual user accounts for every single piece of software. You need active audit trails that quality assurance actually reviews instead of just turning them on and forgetting about them. You need rigorous computerized system validation. You must provide real scenario-based training, not just forcing someone to scribble a read and understand signature on a piece of paper. And above all, you absolutely must foster honest, deep root cause investigations.
Which brings us to a core philosophy that every experienced plant manager lives by. Finding a problem in your factory is not a failure. In fact, finding a problem means your quality systems are actually working the way they should. Refusing to see the problem or sweeping it under the rug is the real failure. Great leaders in this industry never reward their teams for hiding issues. They actively encourage their teams to find them, report them openly, and fix them early, long before an FDA auditor ever knocks on the front door.
If you take away just one single thing from this explainer, make it this. Quality is not only in your final product. Quality is in the evidence. It's in the data that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt how that product was manufactured, tested, investigated, and ultimately released. If your data is strong, you can stand tall and defend any decision you made. But if your data is weak, even a physically perfect tablet becomes highly, highly suspicious, putting your entire plant, your business, and most importantly, the patient at severe risk. If you want to truly understand how the pharmaceutical industry works from the inside, subscribe to Secretos de Fabrico Top. We are building a real pharmaceutical MBA, explainer by explainer, based on real factory experience. Don't forget to hit the like button and share this explainer with your colleagues who really need to master these concepts. Keep your data clean, keep your systems robust, and I'll see you in the next one.